Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, back from Milano, finally. Some of you have expressed wonderment that I was able to have videos that appeared to come from the overflow room and from Milano simultaneously, thanks to the miracle of YouTube TV. Actually, I just banked a couple of dozen of them before I left. And so I was able to use both locales simultaneously. Isn't that exciting? And guess what? On my return, look at what popped up. Yes, the Dohnányi cube. God, I hate this packaging because when you pick it up, it opens and falls on your foot and can kill you. I mean, see, it's like just hold it or try and pick it up by the sides. It's kind of like this, It's like, oh my God, it's going to fall out. It's just unbelievably bad packaging. So, aside from that, here it is, 40 discs of really mostly great stuff. I mean, it is a cavalcade of excellence, except for one enormous blind spot in Dohnányi's repertoire, which fortunately he was not permitted to exploit to the fullest because it was really going badly. But we'll get to that in a moment. Those of you who have been following my reviews over the decades will know exactly what I'm talking about. Anyway, so let's open it carefully. There we go. And we're going to take this. These are original jacket thingies mostly. And let's see what we have here. That's 40 and 1, 2, 3. Okay. So you get a little bookie, of course, the standard issue little bookie with like some track listings and things in it and general notes and whatnot. I do want to say, I mean, it's very interesting. If any orchestra deserves a box, remember DG did a Boston Symphony box, which was really quite marvelous because it had multiple conductors. Well, boy, oh boy, Decca could do a Cleveland Orchestra box, which would be marvelous because you've got all the Dohnányi stuff, you've got some Ricardo Chailly, you've got the Loren Maazel box, and you've also got what's his name? Tons of that. Ashkenazi, who did a lot of work in Cleveland. Some of his best conducting was in Cleveland, actually, especially in his earlier days, because the orchestra could do what he couldn't as a conductor. But anyway, that could be a lot of fun. I'm just pointing out there. Plus, other people. And of course, if Universal wanted to do it, you could throw in Boulez. And, oh, my goodness. It would really be a marvelous tribute to one of the greatest and most distinctive orchestras. And I have to say, in that respect, the Cleveland Orchestra has been incredibly smart. They really have. I mean, we talk about the legacy of George Szell, and Dohnányi used to joke about, we give a great concert and Szell gets a great review. But there is something kind of remarkable about what happened. And it wasn't just Szell. Szell established a standard and a sound and a character for the orchestra, which the orchestra has maintained really well ever since. I mean, it was a very special, it was a chamber music-y, incredibly virtuosic, but also incredibly transparent sound. And Cleveland chose conductors after Szell who had a similar series of priorities. And so the orchestra was able to maintain that. I mean, Boulez, of course, was one of them. He was never their regular conductor, but he was like their interim conductor before they got Maazel, and then a guest conductor forever afterwards. And Maazel was one of them, and Dohnányi was one of them, and so is Welser-Most. So, whatever you say about, whether you like these people or don't like these people, the orchestra has stuck with them, and they have maintained that tradition and their individuality as an ensemble. And that's remarkable these days. It really is, because, everyone talks about how, well, everyone sounds the same and it's all sort of homogenized. Well, that's not true. That's not true when it comes to some of these great orchestras. They have managed to maintain their particular sonority and their priorities. And that is far truer of Cleveland than, for example, it is with Berlin, or even at this point, the Czech Philharmonic and some of these other groups that have had very distinctive sonic traditions, some of which have fallen by the wayside. So I just want to make that point, and throw that out there. Let's go through this now, this little sucker, and see what we get. First pile of things. we can get through. Yeah, let's do this. All right. We've got Mozart, lots of Mozart. Mozart was a Cleveland specialty under you-know-who, and it remains so. So we begin with, some of these things have been sort of recoupled. Here is Mozart. Now, originally, see the cover says Mozart and Webern, which is the way it was originally presented, which was just such a trendy post-romantic thing to do, wasn't it? Because it was the first Viennese school with the second Viennese school. Oh, they made horrible pairings. Fortunately, all the Webern stuff was released separately later on, where it's marvelous. And so is the Mozart. But I mean, talk about how to kill your marketing, you know? I mean, someone who wants one is not likely to want the other. And I mean, I like them both. I don't care. But normal people, right? You know, it depends on who you're trying to sell to. Anyway, Dohnányi is a fabulous Mozartian. He really is. It's first-rate, marvelous, wonderful, absolutely incredibly gorgeous stuff. And I mean, for my money, these Mozart recordings are even better than Cells. They really are, because sonically, of course, they're much better. The orchestra playing is infallibly, gloriously transparent and elegant and cultivated. It was perfect for Dohnányi to do as well. So we have symphonies 35, 36, 38, 39, 40, and 41. And boy, are they hot. And I'm so glad that these are back. I really are. I really are. Yes, I really am. Pardon me. Whatever I am. I'm not. Yeah, there we go. So that's that Mozart. Then we have this other Mozart, which has Eine kleine Nachtmusik, the concerto for flute and harp, and the Symphony Concertant for violin and viola, featuring soloists from the Cleveland Orchestra, including Daniel Majeski, who was their concertmaster for a zillion years, and Robert Vernon. And, you know, it's so good that they're featuring members of the orchestra as soloists, because these people play as well as anybody. I mean, any solo virtuosi. I saw Daniel Majeski once do a slamming Korngold violin concerto at Carnegie Hall. You know, they're wonderful. This is another lovely disc that should have sold 1 million copies, but it probably didn't. And then Mozart Clarinet Concerto with Franklin Cohen, and the Oboe Concerto with John Mack, who was legendary in the world of oboetude, and the Concerto for Bassoon with David McGill. Yay! I mean, another wonderful disc of Mozart goodies. And then we get into other things. I wanted to make one other point. Decca's treatment of Cleveland was very shabby, particularly towards the end, when, you know, the industry was going down the tubes and tanking. I mean, they released stuff. I remember talking to the general manager, whoever he was, of Cleveland at one point, and he was telling me things like, well, you know, they've released these things. They haven't told us they were releasing these things. I asked him, you know, about stuff that was released in Europe. It was never even released in the U.S. Toward the end, it was awful what was going on. And they really had no idea what to do with this orchestra that they had there. I mean, in repertoire, it wasn't always going to be, you know, top selling. They were just lost, and Cleveland suffered. I mean, its position in the Decca roster really was. I mean, they were shabbily treated. Let's just put it that way. Symphonie Fantastique, along with the Invitation to the Dance, which is here the Invitation à la Valse, orchestrated by Hector Berlioz. It's a good Fantastique. It is not the most intense Fantastique, but it has all of those qualities that you look for in the Cleveland Orchestra. It's decent, and it doesn't have dead spots. I'll give it that. It moves well, but it could have more, you know, heaving and sweating. But that wasn't Dohnányi's way. He was a cool character, generally speaking. So it was good he didn't do tons of Berlioz, because Berlioz was not a cool character. Neither was Schumann. But on the other hand, these are wonderful Schumann performances of the complete Schumann symphonies. You know, they benefit from Dohnányi's and the orchestra's ability to clarify Schumann's overly scored textures, and he keeps them moving, and you hear everything, and they are delightful, absolutely beautiful. Let's see, what's this thing here? This is, yes, that's Berlioz. So let's go down there. Then we've got, Brahms and Schumann Violin Concerti with Joshua Bell. There's a Joshua Bell box coming in the next few weeks, I think. I've seen it. I've seen it listed in the Presto website, the Presto classical website. So, you may want to wait. Bell's terrific. I mean, there's nothing not to love here. It really isn't. And I really like the first movement of the Brahms, which is 22 minutes and 45 seconds. It does not dawdle. It's just really well played and enjoyable. And Dohnányi was a great Brahms conductor. Unfortunately, his Brahms is on Teldec. So it cannot be included in these things. Although, quite frankly, they should have licensed it. There's not that much on Teldec. There's like some Brahms and some Ravel and some other things. I mean, they just should have licensed it and thrown it. Then we get Bruckner. Okay. Is this all Bruckner? Yes. Generally speaking, Dohnányi's Bruckner is pretty terrific. It really is. It has a different sound from the Germany Bruckner. I mean, it doesn't have like those rock hard timpani rolls that some people seem to like. I mean, I like them sometimes. Sometimes I can do without them. But boy, the playing is wonderful. The performances are fluent and on the swift side, granted, but just beautifully balanced. They have all the best qualities that the music should have. And they're not lacking in that spiritual element, which is, of course, is written into the music. I mean, you can't avoid it unless you do something really perverse. And he doesn't. He doesn't. So we've got symphonies 3 and 8 here, which only has 3. I guess they stuck 8, yes, somewhere else. So you've got 3, you've got 4, you've got 5. Now, 5, this is a really good fifth. I mean, the fifth is the toughest of all the Bruckner symphonies, I think, to pull off. I really do. It is so weird and so really Brucknerian and not anybody else. But this is a really first-rate performance of it, beautifully paced. I mean, even with an 18-minute slow movement, which is quite slow, it really, really works well. And I remember seeing it live. I saw it live at Carnegie Hall, and I was out at the back of Carnegie Hall. We critics got in through the stage entrance. And there's this huge, these big trucks with all the orchestral material, not the musicians, they rode in buses, but the trucks carried all the instruments and other goodies. They're sitting there in the back, and there are these 2 woodwind players out there having a smoke. I'm not going to say who they were, but I knew. And they were talking about how much they hated Bruckner. Oh, they just hated it. So what are we doing? I don't blame them. If you're a woodwind player in Bruckner's fifth, you are in for a dire time, except for the clarinet, who gets to go boop, 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 boop in the finale. Otherwise, it's just a nightmare. And the funniest thing about the Bruckner fifth, as I pointed out many times, is that at the very end in the chorale, when all hell's breaking loose and the brass are screaming and everyone else is going chunk, 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 Bruckner wants to make that rhythm, bum, 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 ba-dum, bum, a canon. So he's at a 1-beat interval, basically. So he's carrying it through the entire orchestra in ways that balance, except the bassoons have a completely independent part. When all of that roaring nonsense is blaring out there, the bassoons are supposed to be going, and you're supposed to hear that. It's only because Bruckner believed that God sees everywhere. It was the old thing about why, the Greeks painted the backs of their statues, because the gods could see the back, even if we only saw them from the front. Well, that was Bruckner's intention there, and it's so funny. I mean, and I wanted to find the bassoonists and say to them, see, guys, you have your own part. Isn't that exciting? No one's ever going to hear it. Not in a billion years, with the rest of the orchestra playing triple forte on top of it. It's very funny. It's a really good Bruckner fifth. So is the sixth. And it was coupled with the Bach Webern Ricercare, which also made it onto the Webern disc, if I'm not mistaken. Number 7 could be a little more mystical. I mean, I'm not giving up Eugen Joachim or Bernhard Haitink, but again, you can't fault Dohnányi's instincts in this music, because everything is really, really well paced and well balanced. Then we get 3 and 8 again, but we only have 8. First class number 8. If you haven't heard this 8th, you really should hear this 8th. It's really, really, really exciting and beautifully done. And also that's true of the 9th, which is first class. So we have some very, very good Bruckner. Let's see, how does this go? Did I do them backwards now? There's 9. What happened to 9? 3 and 8. That's 3. Okay, so if I put them back this way, will they be in order? No, I reversed them. I have to do this all over again. Hang on a second. Okay, now they're in the correct order, and I can stuff them back into the box. So next we have sort of the poster child for everything that was wrong with what Decca did with Cleveland. Maybe because Dohnányi wanted it, I don't know. But he started a ring cycle. He did, which he never finished. You have Rheingold and you have Walküre, with a cast which was probably about as good as you were going to get in those days. Let's see who's singing here. In Rheingold, it's Robert Hale, Hannah Schwartz, Nancy Gustafson, Elke Wilm Schulte, Thomas something. I can't even see this. Oh, Sonnegard, Kim Begley, Peter Schreier is Mima. Peter Schreier, wow. And Jan Henrik Rudering is in here, and it's a very good Rheingold. It's a wonderful Rheingold. In fact, it's one of my favorite Rheingolds. Why? Because it's an orchestral Rheingold. I mean, clearly, Rheingold is the best thing for Dohnányi and Cleveland to do because it has no arias. It's an ensemble piece, and it's the most radical of all of Wagner's operas. It's the one that most completely realizes his concept of Gesamtkunstwerk. There's just complete flow of uninterrupted music, and it's all fresh, and you hear the leitmotifs for the first time, and it's short. It sounds like no other Rheingold. It is the most wonderfully transparent. It's just gorgeous in how the orchestra sounds. So that is really wonderful. And I can stuff this back here. I'm going to make a little indentation so I don't get out of order. Right? That was Bruckner. Then we get to Walküre. Now, Walküre, again, it has the same qualities as the Rheingold. The singers are, let's see, Paul Elming is Sigmund, Alessandra Mark is a very good Sieglinde, Alfred Muff is Hunding, Robert Hale is Wotan again, Gabriela Schnaut is Brunhilde, Anya Celia, who is Mrs. Dohnányi, is Fricka. And then you've got, the usual bunch of screaming women for the Valkyries. Well, Catherine Chisinski is in there. Anyway, but, it was weird that they were doing a ring that wasn't connected to any stage performances. They were concert performances, if I'm not mistaken. And after this, they gave up. They just gave up. I would have liked to hear Dohnányi's conception of the whole thing because it was turning out to be it was a little bit like Karajan's. Remember Karajan tried to do sort of chamber music, Wagner? It was a bit like that, only more so. And it was beautifully recorded, but I understand. I mean, what was the point? At that point you had ring. Yes, dear? Cat's having a nervous breakdown. There we go, with her little toy thing. In those days, I mean, already we had 1 million ring cycles, So it would have been fun, but it wasn't to be, and the whole thing was canned after the Walküre. Then we come to the dead spot in what I call the cavalcade of excellence, general cavalcade of excellence, and that is Mahler. Yeah, Mahler. Wait a minute, do we get to Mahler? Are we at Mahler yet, or are we not quite yet at Mahler? We're at... Yeah, this is disc number. I can't see. Could you see these? I can't see these. All right, wait a minute. All right, yeah, this is. No, that goes that way. There we go. Okay, now we get to Mahler. Unless I'm not. Wait a minute. Mahler. Anyway, we can talk about it in the meantime. His Mahler just sucks. It's the worst Mahler you've ever heard in your life, for the most part. I can't even see it with a magnifying glass, so I'm not going to worry about it. Dohnányi's Mahler is the most underplayed, undercharacterized, just plain 23. Oh, okay. We're not getting to Mahler yet. First, let's do Strauss. Ein Heldenleben and Till Eulenspiegel. Now, the Strauss is very good because, as you know, the Strauss succumbs to the chamber music approach quite well, and the faster you play it, the better it sounds. Unfortunately, his other Strauss, which is quite marvelous, is with the Vienna Philharmonic, which means that there has to be a Dohnányi Vienna box at some point to do all that stuff as well. And they could have put the two of them together and just had one Dohnányi box and made our lives easy. But then again, this has 40 CDs, and it seems that when Decca gets much higher, they start to screw up how they master everything, and it all gets messed up. So maybe it's better that we just leave it as is. Anyway, so there we go. Now we get to Mahler. Now for Mahler, we have symphonies 1, 4, 5, 6, and 9. Right? 1, 4, 5, 1, 4, 5. There we go. 6 and 9. Now they're all in order. And boy, are they boring. Okay, 1, not so horrible. The least horrible of all of them, because it's charming and folksy and you can play it quickly, and you don't have to go as I don't know. It doesn't have that. Anyway, most people do number 1 pretty well. Let me just stop trying to explain why. 4 is the one you think that they would do well, because it's very, very chamber music-like, and it has lots of wonderful opportunities for soloistic bits of the orchestra, and Dawn Upshaw is the soloist of the finale, and she's lovely. That would be fine, except it just goes to show you how disdainful Dohnányi's approach to Mahler was, because in the first movement recapitulation, the cymbal player gets completely lost. I mean, really, hugely, epically lost, because there's lots of cymbal crashes. Da 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 cha cha, da 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 da, da 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 cha cha cha, da 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 da, da 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 da. Yeah, the cymbals all he's a bar or 2 off the whole time. It's just awful, absolutely awful. Should have been fixed, never got fixed. And I spoke to them about this when it came out. I said, what happened? And then they said, we don't know. Somewhere out there, I'm sure there's a take that probably is correct that didn't get stuck into the recording. It should have been. It should have been fixed, but it's not fixed. And aside from the carelessness, Dohnányi is on record of claiming that he was trying to do a Mahler. What's the word? When you like take things apart and the dissection, something. He was trying to demonstrate Mahler's relation to the Viennese school and not make it excessively emotional. He thought Bernstein was kitschy. He was on record as saying that, by the way. And it was just, if he was trying to make a point, it was a stupid point. And he made it by absolutely underplaying everything. Everything. Climaxes are muted. There are plenty of chamber music-y type Mahler performances out there that also hit the emotional high notes. I've never heard a conductor and a composer who were so ill-suited, and he just should have stayed away from it. It wasn't his thing. It wasn't his thing. You could say, well, he had his approach. It was his, bullshit. It's just bad. All of it. Uniformly. So let's just forget about it and pretend it never happened. It's in the box on 4 or 5 of the 40 CDs, but we can love the rest of them, because what we have for the rest of them is, let's see, let's try and keep this in order now. What's the CD 40? Let's start there, because now we're up to 29. Okay. 29 is Smetana. Oh, no, this is lovely stuff. This is the kind of thing he would do very well. You get the Moldau, which has trumpet parts that aren't quite as clear as in Zell's recording, but they're very good at the end. And Libusha and the Two Widows and the Kiss and the Bartered Bride Overture and Dances, which is just a wonderful collection of Smetana orchestral music. Needless to say, this lasted in the catalog for about 8 seconds, and nobody ever saw it, and they never promoted it, and nobody ever cared, and it's a pity. It really is. Then we get his Dvorak. Now, his Dvorak is marvelous. Absolutely marvelous. First class, all the way through. We've got the 6th Symphony with Janáček's Taras Bulba, a touch underplayed. Janáček is another composer that Dohnányi would probably have been wise to stay away from. It's not bad. It's not bad, but Janáček is just all spontaneous passion. That's Janáček, right? And Dohnányi is totally not spontaneous passion. He's wonderful at pieces of a classicizing tendency, such as the Dvorak symphonies, where you have 6 here and 7, 8, 9, and the Scherzo Capriccioso here. And they're great. They were always great. They're still great. They're fabulously great. And I can't imagine being without them. I really can't. They're just like his Brahms was great. And the Slavonic dances, which were also great. phenomenally wonderful. So there you go. And then we have this, the Bartok music for strings, percussion, and celesta, which is one of the great ones. It's also, this is the kind of music that Dohnányi and Cleveland excel at. They were wonderful at 20th century music, especially the 20th century Second Viennese School and post-Viennese, national ethnic type people in Central Europe. That was Dohnányi's heritage, remember. His family was illustrious as a musical family, although his father was killed by the Nazis for participating in a plot to assassinate Hitler, as I recall. His grandfather was Erno von Dohnányi, the great great composer. And so it really is he was born to this stuff. So it's a great music for strings, percussion, and celesta. A great Martinu concerto for string quartet and orchestra. Oh, would that he'd done more of that. And the Janáček Capriccio for piano left hand. This is a wonderful disc. It's the kind of thing that's never going to sell. No one's ever going to care. But my God, is it just full of amazing music making and precision and intensity. And it's with soloists from the orchestra, as usual. And they're just wonderful. Wonderful. And this is equally wonderful, the Bartók Concerto for Orchestra and the Lutoslawski Concerto for Orchestra. This is an insanely fabulous disc. It really is. The playing is the ne plus ultra in Concerto for Orchestrosity. And the Lutoslawski, it just knock your socks off. Particularly, it's incredible. It also got no attention. Shostakovich 10 with Lutoslawski Musique Funèbre. The Shostakovich 10 is another, you would think he wouldn't get it because, he's not a white hot passion kind of guy, but it's a terrific performance of the Shostakovich 10th. Yes, it's a little bit on the cool side, but the 10th is also a wonderful work that shows Shostakovich's mastery of large formal paragraphs and terrificness, and he also doesn't dawdle over the third movement, because the scherzo, which is the third movement, can really die if you don't keep it moving, and they do keep it moving. So that's really good. And the Lutoslawski, of course, is terrific. Here is the Webern disc. Yes, there it is. All the Webern stuff that originally came with Mozart and whoever else was supposed to be with, Bruckner or whatever, is now on this. And when this was released, this was the beginning of the end for Cleveland, and as far as Decca goes, these last discs, because some of them weren't even released domestically. They were released in Europe, and I remember because I had to buy them as imports. I ordered them all from the UK. We had very little choice back then. And the way we got these, and Decca did absolutely nothing. Zippo. It's this best Webern record ever, by the way, probably. Then we've got these amazing Ives recordings. Yes, the Emeric Ives 4 and the Unanswered Question. The Emeric and the Ives 4, as I mentioned several times in talking about Emeric particularly, were given together at a single concert at Carnegie Hall on tour. That was one of the most hot things I ever saw in my life. This is the kind of stuff this orchestra could just knock the socks off of. They eclipsed anybody else who's attempted them. And gosh, it was marvelous. And it still is. It's a great record. This was another one that never showed up in the United States, at least intentionally. Some people imported it. It was Ives, Three Places in New England, Orchestral Set No. 2, and Carl Ruggles, Sun Treader and Men and Mountains, and the Ruth Crawford Seeger Andante for Strings. One of the best records of American music you will ever hope to hear. And again, these are not big sellers. It was a miracle that Dohnányi was allowed to make them, frankly. Thank God that he did. And then we've got this one, which, who knew it even existed? Disc 40, Harrison Birtwistle, Earth Dances, along with the Schoenberg 5 orchestral pieces and Carl Amadeus Hartmann's Second Symphony, the Adagio. Again, you can't... you wish they would just do this stuff, more of this stuff, endless quantities of this stuff. It would have been impossible, of course. No one would have wanted it. It never would have sold. But wow, is it hot. So there you have it, my friends. Let me try and put its little box on as the background noise increases, because my My computer fan is buzzing away for some reason. Except for the Mahler, it's amazing. And you really, really should hear it. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.